Oh, yes. DeepWaterMMA.com podcast. July 4th edition. Special edition, you guys. I need to do some explaining right up front. Our friend, the connoisseur, Cale Loveridge, is not with us this week. He's according to a text he sent me, he's, quote, sick as fuck. So, he, drink.
Can you explain?
So he's sick. I don't know what happened to him.
Can you explain
we
why
wish
we're
him
drinking?
well. And which if you just heard the dings, we are making this a drinking game. It's July 4th. So for this podcast, I've brought in some fill-ins. They're like fill-in fighters. You guys are like stepping up
Freedom
at
fighters,
the end
if you
here
will.
for Cale, who can't be here. So I called up some other people, the two Mikes that I know, Mike LaRocco and Mike Burkhart. And
Mike
they're,
and Mike in the afternoon.
Mike and Mike,
Dude,
yeah,
I've
on
got
July
my game
4th
face on.
afternoon.
I'm ready to do this. There's
So-
no joking around here. Oh, there's no joking around. I'm ready to play.
right.
Let's get
You
this.
excited? I don't know.
I've been ready to rip.
Maybe
man.
for a
I'm
minute,
ready to
maybe you
rip.
could just take like a couple seconds and describe your experience with the UFC, just for the people.
This feels like an interview right now. Okay, sir.
Lay it out there.
How much do you know about the UFC?
I would
Because
say that
while we're
know-
talking, I think people want to know how much you
I'm going to
actually
give
know.
you. This is Mike the Riff Master, and I'm going to give you. I'm going to say I'm 50-50. I think I know enough information that
Okay.
I know how to choose a winner from the fights I've seen, but I don't follow the guys unless they're the top marquee fighters. That's
Okay,
just
all right.
how I roll.
All right, well then this might be a good podcast to have you on because we have a couple marquee guys fighting tonight, or on Saturday night. I
Mike,
should say.
yourself?
Mike Burkhart, what is your connection, if any, to the UFC?
I always used to think it was just a bloody sport, and then I actually took up jiu-jitsu and a little bit of MMA myself. Did that for a couple of years.
I
and it
forgot
gave-
about that.
Yeah, it gave me a new appreciation for the sport. I actually started watching it and seeing the technique and
Nice.
all the training that's involved in that.
I
so.
totally forgot about that part of your life. That's a secret part of
That was
life.
before CrossFit.
Just
so.
thinking
Now
about,
he's into the CrossFit.
he's
That's right.
got this background where he actually stepped into it. Does Joe Rogan do that too? He must.
Yeah.
He has to
Yeah, he's
fight,
big
right?
time.
With everything
Joe
he
Rogan,
talks about.
yeah, he fights.
He has to.
He's
He definitely trains.
7th planet.
Like
I
a
think.
lot, yeah.
That's where he trains at with.
But no, when you listen to him describe the fights and the moves, it's incredible.
Have you seen his ears? He's all
He's all
He's
on
all-
steroids. He's full of supplements.
cauliflower. Yeah.
We've all noticed that.
So
neck
we're
just
not making any
bigger.
accusations here on the Deepwater podcast.
This is a betting website, by the way.
We're here to discuss the fights.
But see,
By the way, I
that-
think we forgot something. We forgot the drinking game rules. We didn't explain those to the
we're riffing,
listeners.
dude.
Back
We're
up.
riffing.
We got a little
Back it up.
distracted.
The riff
So-
Meister was here. I'm sorry.
So we have the rules. We can't say the word That'll be a drink. Right?
Can I get dinged? Oh, there you
Ding.
go. Thank you.
Ding.
Trying to drink.
And this is going to make this whole thing just kind of a disaster, I think. But no curse words
No,
And-
no pointing.
and no pointing at each other. So you'll just have to trust us if there's a ding.
Should
for
we
pointing.
describe the scene too?
We're just sitting around a table, so it's
We're
good. I
riffing,
think we
baby.
can.
We're riffing around the table.
Beautiful Vero Beach.
Beautiful Vero Beach, Florida. I want to mention something. If you're still listening this far in, thank you. And I want to mention that we have posted our best bet at the website DeepWaterMMA.com. We are 9-2 with our first 11 best bets, which is a pretty good rate.
That's not bad.
You guys can make a
Not
little
bad.
money on that.
What's
So
the,
we're looking to bounce
percentage?
back.
What is that? 2 into 9. What Smarty Pants knows that one?
9 out of 11.
9 out of 11. Oops, sorry.
It's somewhere around 90%.
It's pretty good. And I want to thank the FightBetNetwork.com actually for linking up with us. They post all of our articles through their website, and
82%.
82%. The research team just came back
All
with
right.
the numbers. They
Let's
just
do
crunched
this.
the
So let's
numbers.
make some people some money.
So-
How about that? That's my goal today. Make
All right.
you money. That's what I'm on this
Yes.
podcast for.
All right,
Making
let's-
people money.
So
That's
let's
right.
start.
That's all
So
about.
so check out the website for the best bet. We're not going to talk about it here on the podcast. We want you to go to the website, check that out, leave a comment, send an email.
I'm pointing. Excuse me. I'm fired up.
Mike is so psyched up that he's pointing at me across the table.
And I'm drinking now.
Are we all wait, I don't have to drink for that.
No,
No, you do not.
It's
Oh,
just-
okay. So let's start off the top. Off the top. Middleweight title fight. Anderson Silva, 33-4, taking on Chris Weidman, 9-0.
Is it Weidman or Weidman? We've had this discussion.
I'm going Weidman.
I thought it was Weidman. Mike,
It could be.
an idea.
I'd say Wiedemann.
Look at the spelling.
I think it
Yeah.
depends on
Wiedemann.
where you're from.
Could be Wiedemann. You don't know. Sometimes WEI is a V. in
It's a
some-
V.
Wiedemann, maybe
Wiedemann.
maybe
I like
100
that,
years
yeah.
ago it was Wiedemann.
Chris Wiedemann.
The Viking. Chris the Viking Wiedemann.
So Anderson Silva, kind of a minus 228. I don't know if you guys know what that means. It means he's a 2-1 favorite. Chris Weidman plus 220, kind of a 2-1 underdog. So Anderson Silva, I'm going to read you guys some stats, and then we can talk about what we think of this. Anderson Silva's 38 years old.
Ding. There's a ding on the board here.
Oh, ding. I keep saying
We're gonna need another beer.
This is going to be a long podcast. Anderson Silva, 38 years old, 17 straight wins, going back and forth between middleweight and light heavyweight. That's an
That was a long one, by the way. What
Doesn't
fact you
count,
looking for
doesn't
there,
count.
bud?
Taking on Chris Weidman, who's 5-0 in the UFC.
Wiedemann.
Chris Weidman, 5-0 in the UFC. Over Munoz, Maya,
I like that.
Lawler, Belfort. He's got some big names on his record here.
Well, I'm
what are you
jumping
guys
in.
thinking with this? What are
Jumping
you guys
in.
thinking?
What is that? Is that a gesture?
That's
a gesture here.
Wait, so the
this is a
9-0
disaster.
is that just his professional career, not including
Yeah.
the UFC?
Yeah,
Okay.
professional career.
Okay.
5-0 in the UFC, 9-0.
This is an
overall.
Well,
easy call for me.
That's
It's-
pretty good.
It's Silva. Look,
Explain yourself, Mike.
this is
number
what I'm
one.
saying. I won't leave the name of the blogs out. Okay, I'll get to my drinking here in a second. I'll leave the name of the blogs out, but what they're saying is that Anderson Silva is maybe the greatest fighter of all time. In essence, this guy wins. That's all he does. It's about betting on him, for trying to figure out a way to bet on him to make money. Somehow figure out a way that you're going to earn cash because you know Silva's going to win. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's a great fighter. He's got that alligator skin, as you call it. Dave.
Yeah, the alligator skin.
He doesn't bleed.
He doesn't bleed.
I mean, I've seen him like kind of on the ropes a little bit, but he just wins. Here's what scares me. He's 38. We all know eventually there will be a fighter where something happens. It
Yeah,
can happen.
yeah.
You can get a flying scissor kick hold on you, and it's going to happen. I don't think Chris Weidman's the guy. Chris Wiedemann is the guy.
Chris the
too.
Viking Wiedemann.
I don't think it's him. He's young. He's hungry. A lot of people are happy about it, but they got to make this a big fight.
Yeah.
Because Anderson Silva's tough.
Yeah.
You want to bring people in and sell some tickets, and so the UFC does
Absolutely.
their thing to get people to talk about.
You know, I'm gonna
The
play the
opponent.
devil's advocate here and say that Wiedemann's going 10-0.
Oh yeah. All right. What do you think? Why?
Gold, yes, make some money for you.
Defend your?
29
That
years old
claim.
versus 38 years old. I mean, yeah,
38, I'll give you that one.
He's got a lot of
I'll give you it.
experience. 37 fights. It looks like he's won 33, 17 of the last ones.
Dropping some bombs right there. That's some factual stuff, man.
But
That's
you know,
it.
it's always
We're
about the
prepared today.
underdog. It's always about the underdog in these things, and you just can't ever rule them out.
This is Anderson Silva. This guy,
You can't rule him out.
You can't put numbers against this guy because he's the type of fighter where he'll just put his chin out and just like hit me. I'm bored right now, and then he attacks you, and then all of a sudden you're out. Chael Sonnen cowered in the corner.
Yeah.
He actually stared at him for like a split second. Like, did he seriously just trip and fall over in front of me? Okay,
Yeah.
pummel, end of fight. You can't put that stuff into numbers.
Yeah, it's he's pretty amazing. Chris. A lot of people are picking Chris Weidman. These are some of the closest odds in an Anderson Silva fight in a couple of years. These are even closer than Chael Sonnen. The first time they're about kind of what the Chael Sonnen 2 looked like as far as odds go. So the bookies and the odds, and I've heard there's a lot of UFC fighters who are picking Weidman here. I think Weidman's going to take the title. He's a big, strong wrestler with jiu-jitsu. He's at least as tall as Anderson Silva. I think they have a pretty similar reach and everything, so it should be.
I don't know. Reach
And he's been talking a pretty mean game leading up to this. I don't know if you guys have seen any of that.
I like the reach, like I said.
They are
I
the
think
same
that's
height.
a very big. What's the reach? Give us that number.
The research team.
He's 6'2" out of Hofstra University.
I need
wrestling
reach,
team.
though. I need to know how- What's
All
his
American at
wingspan?
Hofstra University. I mean, everybody saw what Chael Sonnen did to Anderson Silva that first
78
fight.
inches. 78 inches.
So is that
Mike's a reach man over there.
6 feet.
It's pretty far. Yeah, I don't
That's
know.
huge.
6 feet and change, man.
Yeah.
It's good. I just don't think you guys get it. I don't think Anderson Silva is going to lose this one. I just feel like he's got speed, determination. Like He's like the Tiger Woods or Michael Jordan. He just shows up and wins.
Yeah.
That's what he does.
Well, I'm with you. I'm picking Anderson Silva. I love these odds for him. I think, I watched the movie Like Water, which is a documentary that you should all watch on Anderson Silva. And it kind of shows you the other side of his life, but it also shows the other side of the UFC. And it was a nice reminder to me as a betting person, right, to not get too caught up in the hype of of events.
Dan
Yeah,
just
especially
had a
the
real
build-up.
moment there. You had a real moment where
That
you
was-
was like, that's real speak.
That was real. That was real.
Jesus.
I think it's also
Get out
important
of
to
here.
note
We're
though.
not fucking emotional.
No, So what I'm saying is, there's a lot of hype behind Chris Weidman. Weidman.
Yeah.
Right? But there's a lot of things that are working against him. He hasn't fought in a full year.
Yeah, he hasn't
Fought for an entire year. He had torn labrum. He's been
Like
out.
I said, you can't put a torn
Look at
labrum
the
in
guy.
your
He's like an
numbers.
underwear model.
He was supposed to. He was supposed to fight at UFC 155, and that got
So you think
scratched.
he's just hungry? Is that what you're trying to say? Like hunger factor?
So I think. Well, I don't think hunger. I think ring rust. I mean, would you want to take a year away from this whole process? This is one of the biggest events of the year. This is one of the 4 biggest pay-per-views of the year for the UFC, and this is his first time back in a year. And prior to that, his biggest thing was like headlining a show in like Australia that was on Fuel, that only
So just
a couple
pour-
hundred people even
pour some
probably
fuel in that
saw.
fire, man. He's just
You know?
gonna implode. He's just like, whoa, this is big.
Well, I think
boom, first punch. He's out.
He's knocked out a guy 3 times. He submitted a guy 3 times, and he's won 3
you
times.
give me
by
facts,
decision.
I go with my gut.
Yeah,
Right here,
It's
this
true.
gut.
It's hard to argue with the facts.
It's
though.
it should be an awesome fight. I'm going Silva to win. I'm going to take him in the 4th round. 4th round TKO. I think Weidman gets him to the ground for a couple rounds, holds him. I think it's a dramatic fight.
He's a brown belt.
I think Anderson Silva's alligator skin comes through for him again.
Your term, not mine.
I think he might end up on the bottom, but survive it and not look too bad, and then eventually catch Chris Weidman standing. I think that's what's going to happen. That's
I'm
my
going to
call.
play the underdog card the whole way.
So 2 Anderson Silvas and 1 Weidman.
Weidman.
All right,
I'm
that's fair
going-
enough.
I'm going Silva.
What do you guys think of those odds? I feel like they're pretty good
That's
odds.
about what the odds are. 2 to 1, right?
Yeah, 2 to 1 both directions,
Same
pretty
as
much.
the direction.
You'd have to bet $228
Yeah,
to
let's-
win $100.
Let's make these
on
people
Anderson
some money.
Silva.
Let's make
So-
so find a way to pick Silva to win, whether that's a technical knockout, some weird
Maybe pick a specific kind of victory.
some weird way it just ends. If you put a couple bucks on that, because
A Silva KO
that's
or
the only
TKO.
chance you're going to win money with Silva.
Hit him in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah, just first punch knockout. I don't fucking care. Bet on something that will at least give you a chance to win, and that's Silva. Game.
All right, there we go. Moving on. We have another big name there as LaRocco continues his... he knows all the big names.
My dominating.
So he
passion.
knows a little bit about Silva. Here's another guy. At 145, they're featherweights, right? Frankie Edgar squaring off against Charles Oliveira.
Tell you what, I would not want to fight against Frankie Edgar. That guy is mean.
We need.
He's tough as
We
shit.
need
Are you
yeah.
kidding
for
me?
the next podcast, if I ever get invited back, we need copies of this. I need these facts in front of me.
Yeah. I
It's
should
tough
send this
to-
out ahead of time.
I like.
Well,
It was
Sure,
last
I-
minute, everybody listening. If you're still listening, which would be incredible right now. If not all of you have just turned it off, then thank you for
We're
sticking with
riffing,
us.
man.
We're
We're
riffing a
riffing.
little bit,
We're
but
riffing.
this is definitely last minute. We had to bring the people what they want to steal a Jalen Rose line. We got to give the people what they want.
This
and
is
that's
what
a
they want.
podcast. And this is one of the biggest events of the year, so we'll get a few goofy friends together, and we will...
Bring your popcorn.
You know what the sad
we'll
part
keep
is?
bringing it.
I'm not even gonna watch this. That's the worst part. I have.
I mean, listen to it?
no. I'll listen. I'll listen to the podcast. I meant the fights.
Oh, you're not even going to watch the fights? You're busy.
I gotta go pick up my
Anyway,
girlfriend
this
from the
is,
airport.
That's even worse.
Let's get to the next one because it's taken. This is already too much. This is already a train wreck completely.
Not even close. This is the best one you've probably ever done.
Frankie Edgar, 15-4-1, taking on Charles Oliveira, who's 16-3. We all know, I think, a little bit about Frankie Edgar. He's a pretty big favorite, minus 454, which means you'd have to bet $454 to win $100 if you want to go with Frankie Edgar. Charles Oliveira on the other end, plus 444. So pretty big odds here in favor of Frankie Edgar. He's 31 years old. All 4 of his losses are by decision. He's lost 3 in a row. I'm saying that sort of sarcastically. I think he's
got the
lost
the
3 in
air
a row.
quotes, man.
I'm air quoting lost, but he's lost 3 in a row to Jose Aldo in his last fight and twice to Benson Henderson in fights that a lot of people think he may have actually won. So
When it comes down to decision, that's always a tough call. What the
Yeah.
viewer sees at home and what they see in the stadium is not always what the judges see, and they're looking for different things as well.
say that again.
Yeah. I mean, you can say
you
that
would
about a lot
think
of
that a
guys.
referee in a ring who's literally this far, I'm sitting this far from you two, you guys are fighting in front of me. You think they would be able to tell who was winning the fight?
You would hope so.
Well, they get a feel for it, but it's also done based on points and who came out at the end. But overall, you should have a pretty good feeling at the end of the fight.
So are you saying the judges should be watching the telecast so they can see it from the TV perspective?
I think they should get some instant replay, maybe.
I've said this before
Really?
on a previous podcast with the connoisseur Cale Loveridge, who we're thinking of right now. He might even be listening. He might be the only one still listening. But I actually mentioned that with him. I was like, I think the judges should be in a soundproof booth,
Yeah.
in like a club seat, overlooking it. Give them the best seats in the house.
Right.
Put them in a soundproof booth so they can't hear boos and cheers, and text in their round scores.
I got 2 things to add, John.
I think that's a great idea.
May I jump in? 2 things. I want to riff.
Jump
here.
in.
Here's
Jump
my
in.
riff. Dan,
Yes, I'm listening.
first off, stop saying this is the worst podcast ever. This is probably the best podcast ever.
It's the best one I've ever been a part of.
It's the best one I think has ever been made, and I've never listened to any of them. So, obviously.
Mike LaRocco Chael Sunning his way into the podcast here.
2,
This is the greatest podcast that's ever been.
this is the
Chael
great.
Sonnen
No,
talking about my own podcast. I don't know, man.
Dan, very clever. I'm chuckling heartily. I've guffawed a few
Yeah.
times.
Say what you were going to say if you
Guffaw.
still remember what it was.
Actually, I don't, but thank you. No, seriously.
No one's going to listen to our podcast ever again. That's just what I'm afraid
Here's
of.
all I have to say. 2 facts. 1, greatest podcast ever. 2, you're right about floor seating. Remember when we went to that UFC fight? We had floor seats.
Yeah.
You can't see a
You can't
thing.
see anything from down there. I
Even
know.
if you're the first row, you do have to, what if they're fighting?
Are you acting it out right
yes,
now?
how big is the how big is the
It's a
octagon?
radio show.
It's what, 18? The octagon's 18 feet maybe?
Something like that. I don't know. I don't even know.
Maybe it's 100. I don't know what
It's
it
not
is.
100.
But if the judges are on one side and they're on the other side fighting, they're this high. I'm crouched down by the table. I can see how you can miss some things.
It's like
Dan's
watching
onto-
people's feet under a door.
Dan's on to something.
Right? Like if
Dan's
you were
onto
laying
something.
on the side looking
think
through
you're
the bottom
right.
of a door. That's,
Give them better seats. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, they do put them at different.
booths.
They don't all sit next to each other, I believe. I think they're spaced out
Yeah.
around the ring so that.
Yeah, they are.
the
All right, so
octagon-
you're giving
But still.
one judge the best view out of 3? No, get them
Well,
into
it's a
someplace-
rotating best view, so nobody ever really has the best view.
But
It's like one of the judges is sitting in the end zone
Yeah.
and all the action's taking place in the other end zone and they're trying to judge it somehow. I feel
what
like
I'm
that's
saying.
like
That looks
one
like
of
a
the
holy call
judges
to me. I
is
don't
probably
know.
experiencing
and
that
that's
feeling.
and that's why you got to go ahead and put them up. Elevate 'em.
Soundproof booth, box seats,
I agree. dude.
black suits, black ties, dark sunglasses.
Well,
just
then why have-
expressionless judges.
why
we
have
need
them there
we
at
need
all?
computers. They need to be computer robots. Actually, I think that's the
Dan.
best solution.
So are they
husband's
watching
a-
the fight at all, like
Yeah.
live, or are they watching it all on TV? 'Cause-
They would watch it live, and they would also have monitors if
To
they
watch the
didn't
replay?
feel like watching it live. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think they should be able to use that stuff. I don't think that's a crazy idea.
Can you have beer?
Yeah, well, no, they shouldn't have any beer.
Of course not. That
They should
impairs
have
their judgment.
oxygen tubes that they're just, inhaling
I
pure
agree with
oxygen
you. I agree with you on the principle.
so
All
that
these
they can
silly
think
things.
and breathe. And anyway, so a couple of maybe bad decisions going Frankie Edgar's way.
Okay.
He's lost 3 in a row, apparently, right? If you believe he lost. But he lost, right? So the UFC's throwing him Charles Oliveira here, 23 years old, coming off a loss to Cub Swanson in round 1. He's 4-3-1 in his 8 UFC fights. All 4 of his wins are by submission. He's a pretty big underdog. What do you guys think of this one? I mean, how do you see this going? Frankie Edgar's never been submitted. And Oliveira only wins by submission. I feel like that's my answer to the question.
Yeah, I think that that's going to make it a good fight. Hopefully it doesn't go to the judges. Just one more point on that. If you don't like it going to decision, don't let it go to decision. You control what happens.
Dana
in
White
the
says
ring.
that all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
So I think Frankie Edgar's going to dance around him. I don't think Oliveira's going to be able to get his hands on him. I think Frankie Edgar will either catch him late or win a decision eventually. because Oliveira will not knock out Edgar, and he probably won't submit him, even though that's his MO.
You've convinced me, man.
So I'm going
There it
Edgar.
is.
He's
Facts
a pretty
and
huge
straight.
favorite. Minus
But
454.
there's
I don't
always-
even know.
Do we go with our gut again? Remember, there's always
Yeah,
one,
what's your gut?
There's
I mean-
one knockout. There's always that single fight that turns the other way. I mean,
Well, there's
did that
a- I
really
think,
happen? Did that happen?
Not. What do you mean? Happen when?
I don't know. I'm just saying.
Hasn't
Well,
happened
this is
yet.
the, this
Well,
is
you
the
should-
biggest swing as far as
The
odds
main
go
event's a possibility
in the
for that.
whole.
Yeah,
matchup.
this is the biggest, most lopsided fight.
Yeah.
Let's keep going here, though. Next one, we're back to the middleweight division. Roger Gracie. I don't know if you guys recognize the Gracie name.
Yeah.
Gracie's one of the original sort of MMA families. Taking on Tim Kennedy. Roger Gracie is 6-1, plus 130, slight underdog. Tim Kennedy's 15-4, minus 135, a slight favorite. This fight's airtight, you guys. They're both making their UFC debut,
Could go back or forth.
coming out of
Yeah.
Strikeforce. So there's a little pressure on both of them, but that's a wash because they're both kind of experiencing that. Roger Gracie's 31. Tim Kennedy's 33, if you're thinking about ages there.
Sounds like a pretty even fight. I mean,
It's an effing close fight.
very
Well, it
similar
is
records.
July 4th. I'm going Kennedy.
Yeah.
Huh? God bless America.
You know-
He is an ex-military guy. I forget exactly what branch.
There it is.
Why not?
Special Forces, I think.
technically
Army
is-
Special Forces.
It's technically not on
He's
the 4th
tough
of
as
July.
shit. I know that.
I'll tell you what. He
He's-
needs to
Jacob.
keep the fight standing
He's
up the
a-
whole time.
Yes.
He's got a lot of experience. 19 fights. It might be his first UFC fight, but overall a lot more experience than 7 fights for Roger Gracie.
Yeah.
I think if he keeps it standing up, he's going to win the fight.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's exactly right. Gracie's he's won 6 fights. 5 of them are by submission. 3 of them are by rear naked choke. So we know what he wants to do. We know that Roger Gracie wants to tie it up, get it to the ground, and keep it on the ground. I don't know if we'll be able to against Tim Kennedy. This is going to be a super close fight. I think whoever takes control of things and kind of imposes their will is going to win the fight. If Tim Kennedy, like you said, can keep it standing, and he can do that for sure, I think he'll outstrike Roger Gracie. I think if Gracie can clinch with him, tie him up, get him on the ground, wear him down a little bit, I think he can eventually submit him late in the fight. So I think there's like probably going to be like a fork in the road, like sometime in the middle or late first round where this fight sort of takes a turn one way or the other, I think, for one of these guys.
You pumped me up, man. I'm still going
Yeah.
with Kennedy, though.
I'm taking Gracie because I already wrote it down. It's already on the website.
This is like a surprise good fight that we're looking at here.
Oh, it's going to be a great fight. It's going to be awesome. Yeah, you might not know these names that well because they haven't been in the UFC before, but the Gracie family has a long history in the UFC, going all the way back to UFC 1. Tim Kennedy is just a tough dude. Like, he's a brawler, wrestler, grappler,
Tim Kennedy,
just in your face.
I think if Kennedy keeps the fight up, it's
Yeah.
going to go the distance.
You
and-
taking Kennedy?
Yeah, I think he's going to win by decision.
It is July 4th weekend. He is ex-U.S. military. That could be an extra motivation. I don't know. He's had a rough week, though. He said something. He came out and said something about fighter pay, and so he's been under a lot of scrutiny this week. So I don't know if that's going to throw him off, mentally, But I'm taking Gracie. I'm going to take Gracie. Gracie's 6'4". And for some reason, when I read that, I was like, that seems really significant. That's 2 inches taller than Chris Weidman or Wiedman, and it's 2 inches taller than Anderson Silva. And I think that he'll be able to avoid Tim Kennedy's punches. That's where I'm coming from. I think he'll keep his distance enough from Tim Kennedy to not get beat up too much and eventually get it to the ground. That's what I'm thinking. That's my logic for taking Roger Gracie. He's tall. He trains at Black House, which is like Anderson Silva, the Nogueira brothers, all those guys. So I think
down in Miami or something.
it's in Brazil or LA. I'm not sure if they have an American location. So I'm going Gracie. 2 people with Tim Kennedy. If you're looking for the knockout fight, the fight that might not go a full round or maybe won't finish, I think we're coming up to it, LaRocco. Are you paying attention?
I think that is a big height difference. That's a
Marco's drunk.
5-inch. He's
He's
wasted.
already wasted.
That's a 5-inch height difference.
I had Wendy's today, too.
Who, Gracie and Kennedy?
Yeah.
Yeah, Kennedy. Kennedy's a little bit shorter than. For a 185er, he's kind of a shorter 185 guy, and Gracie's a taller one. So I think that's going to play into his advantage. Long limbs. I think he'll be able to snap up a neck or an arm at some point. We're talking about a pretty serious jiu-jitsu guy. He's like next level jiu-jitsu.
But I think, Tim.
So I'm taking Gracie as an underdog. I think
Okay.
as from a betting perspective,
All right.
I think he represents good value. So if you're looking to kind of be wise with your money, it's a super close fight, but since it's such a pick'em fight, I think maybe you take the underdog and take the extra money, in the event that he comes through. So let's keep moving down the card. This next fight, Mark Munoz, the Philippine Wrecking Machine. That's his nickname.
Doesn't quite
versus,
rhyme, but it's
Tim-
pretty close.
Versus Tim the Barbarian Boach. So I think for the rest of this, we should refer to them as in their nickname fashion. So the Filipino Wrecking Machine and the Barbarian. You can kind of see.
Well, if we're going off,
I
just
mean, even
the
if you don't know
nicknames-
anything about these guys, you can kind of see how this is going to be going. This is like two stone figures just punching each other.
I think
Cannonballs.
I don't know about the Beast.
The Beast or the Barbarian?
The Beast or the Barbarian.
Do you mean
I
the
don't know about
Barbarian?
I do mean the Barbarian.
That's right. We have Mark Munoz. Yeah, you want some stats? Do you want me to give you some stats?
I say we go off their nicknames.
Just-
okay, well,
you want to just go off nicknames? Is
Mark-
that
okay.
okay?
Go
Mark's
for it.
35 years old,
Yeah.
Wait.
6 foot tall. He's won 12 fights out of 15.
Yep.
6 by knockouts. I think.
He hasn't fought in a year. I'm going to chime in and say that.
Yeah, but he
Ring
fought-
rust is a serious thing.
He fights every day. These guys fight every day.
No.
So
Dude, I
not,
agree.
not real fight.
Again, I go back to the
They
gut
spar.
feeling.
They do that kind of thing.
Yeah,
But
you cannot prepare for a UFC pay-per-view fight like by practicing on.
you get into a rhythm. You get into a rhythm with the fights. So a year off is a long time. He gained a lot of weight after his last loss.
Depression.
He literally was depressed from
Depressed.
losing to Chris Weidman. So he's kind of bouncing back a little bit here. I mean, he got knocked out pretty bad by Chris Weidman. But he's lost to a couple of big wrestlers, and Tim Boach is a big dude, And he lost his last fight, but he's been fighting lately. And he dropped from light heavyweight to middleweight, and he went on a pretty nice tear there. I think he's like 4-1 or something at middleweight.
The Barbarian, man.
Yeah, he's the Barbarian, dude. He's good. I'm taking Tim Boach because you want to hear here's my reasoning, and then you guys can go.
No?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I'm taking the Barbarian,
Barbarian.
and I'm taking him because I think he has more ways to win than Mark Munoz. Mark Munoz is a wrestler with a big punch who likes to grind it out, take you to the ground. And Tim Boach is a big dude. I don't know if he's going to be able to drag him to the ground. Mark Munoz isn't tall. He's a little bit older, hasn't fought in a year. I think he'll maybe have a great first round.
Damn.
And then I think Boach is going to kind of slowly impose himself. Octagon control, if I'm going to call it a factor. I think Boach will have more octagon control and hit him a little bit harder. I'm taking Boach, who's a slight underdog. Boach is another slight underdog here, plus 118. So I'm going Gracie and Boach.
I couldn't have said it better. The Barbarian, man.
The Barbarian.
Simple as that.
The Barbarian.
I think you get nicknames for a reason.
Yeah. Yep. I remember losing some money betting against him about maybe a year ago. He fought Yushin Okami in Japan.
So you're chasing.
And
bad money.
Okami beat him up for 2 rounds. Just was punching him, kicking him, whatever. He was winning the fight for sure. And then in between the second and third round, the Barbarian's corner said to him, "You're losing this fight. You need to go out and win this fight right now." And he went out in the third round and chainsawed Yushin Okami. He had a one-hand sort of uppercut. It was a weird angle, though, that he was doing it.
I remember this.
It was an insane comeback, and I was very disappointed for my own personal reasons. But Boach, it was a note. It was a thing to remember. It was a moment to remember because he's a tough dude, and he knows what he's doing in there, and he can come out and I think he just has a couple more ways to win than Mark Munoz, who's the slight favorite here. So another awesome fight. The last fight on the card. You guys ready? You guys still with me here? It's gotten quiet. It's getting strange.
What are the nicknames?
I feel like I'm doing this by myself now. Is this?
I told you, man. I don't follow a lot of these guys.
We're getting into no man's land.
I think you are.
Is that what this
letting
is?
You do your thing. And
We're into no man's land now.
I'm ready to jump back in.
I
Alright.
agree. Mike says you give the facts. And
I'll give
I
the
don't know
facts.
these guys, so
Alright.
I just go with the Barbarian.
Put me
based
in,
on
coach.
The Barbarian.
Put me in.
All right. Well, the last fight, which will be the first fight of the pay-per-view main card,
This guy's got a weird name.
Cub Swanson.
Swanson Cub.
Cub Swanson 19-5. He's a slight favorite, minus 215, against Dennis Seiver from Germany, flying in from Mannheim, Germany, who's 21-8 and has a lot of kickboxing experience. He's a slight underdog at plus 205.
Should we talk about the travel factor here?
We
for
should.
a second?
Mention the travel
The
factor.
fight's in Las Vegas. We got a couple of guys from California, a bunch of guys traveling in for this. If you're flying in from Germany, I don't know when they come in, if they come in a week ahead of time.
It's an insane week, too, because it's the UFC Expo
Yeah.
that's going on this entire week leading
they're
up to the
busy.
pay-per-view.
You want to train, you want to eat right, but you're traveling, you got to
Yep.
eat shitty airplane food, you got to...
Shitty airplane food, come on.
Yeah, these guys, they're not
Peanuts?
they're not packing their own food.
Melted ice cubes?
I don't even
That's
think
good
you can
stuff.
fly direct from Germany to Las Vegas. I think you got to stop in New York or something
That's
like that.
a long
So,
flight.
yeah, and then you get there and you're seven hours behind, and you're trying to keep your training regimen, your eating regimen. I don't know. I think I'm going to go on Swanson with this one.
Yeah, that's a good reason, I think. I wrote about this, actually. If anybody visits the website ever.
Oh, just look at West Coast teams going to the East Coast for 1 o'clock games.
Good
in
point.
football. I mean, they
Really
can't-
good point.
They can't
Yep.
do it.
All right, let
That's
me
the
look at
Sun
some
Tzu factor,
facts
too. If you
here.
go back to Sun Tzu's Art of War, you know, he really kind of laid it out a little bit in that.
Yeah, fight them on your own turf.
Fight them on your own turf if you're fighting, or even whoever's closer to their own turf, really, you know, tends to have an advantage.
I mean, you got to move armies.
Yeah, there's on the undercard, you know, there's a Japanese fighter coming from Japan. You might want to look out for him. Not probably doing so well. There's not a great track record for Japanese fighters traveling to the U.S. and fighting. So I'm going Cub Swanson. I like Dennis Seiver. He's got a great spinning back kick that could probably put anybody down if he hits it the right way.
I don't know. I have a
But,
pretty tough jaw, dude. I don't think he can.
But
How long could you last?
Everyone's
one of
got a
these
sweet
fighters?
spot.
Oh, 20 seconds maybe. Depends how long they
Okay.
decide to not hit me.
I don't think I could last 20 seconds. I'm not kidding. The dude would see me and just come after me. And I'm like, oh, this is happening.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying.
I try not to
Did
think
you
about
guys
it.
see that
wondered
video
about
that just went re-viral? It happened a couple years ago. It's just been re-released. where-
Re-viral. A re-released viral
Yeah,
video.
like
I didn't even know that was a thing.
It wasn't really big when it first came out, but now all of a sudden it's gaining a lot of traction.
It's in
almost
3D
like,
this time.
It's almost like a virus that went away and came back stronger, you know? So the guy gets hit in the gut, it's like right above his waistline, and he goes down and the guy comes after him, just like ready to tear him up. And the guy one who gets hit sees him, I don't know the names.
Yeah.
And instead of cowering and dropping on the ground and getting his ass kicked, he just throws the meanest right hook and knocks the attacker out like dead cold. Because the guy coming in saw a weakened opponent, came in with his hands out like this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And just
the
crushed
podcast can't see that, but his hands are out like
He's
this.
gesturing right now.
Yeah, drink. And, instead of being the wounded, victim, he just
Yeah.
came out swinging and knocked the guy out. So I think,
Well, I mean, if you're asking me, Cub Swanson, he's 29. He's won 4 straight.
he's from California.
He's from California. His only losses are to some pretty elite fighters. Ricardo Lamas, who's going to probably be challenging for the title. Chad Mendez, who has challenged for the title. And the champion, Jose Aldo. Those are the 3 people he's lost
He's a
to.
black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
So he's a really good fighter. And I don't think Dennis Seiver is on the level of the guys that he has lost to. He's 34 years old. His 4 wins in his last 5 have all been by decision, so he kind of wears people down. And he tends to lose by sub. Dennis Seiver has 8 losses. 5 of those 8 losses are by submission. And when you look across, Cub Swanson has 7 of his 19 wins by submission. So I think there's maybe a ground factor there for sure. And Cub Swanson's fighting out of Jackson's MMA with Greg Jackson, who...
Yeah.
When you're considering, again, it's another like Sun Tzu thing that I wrote about. You have to kind of consider who these guys are training with. Is the dude training in his garage with his crusty dad, who's like ordering his training regimen, or is he training with like real professionals? Because when you get to this level, that kind of stuff actually matters. If you're in a dysfunctional training camp, and you're trying to, and nobody's organized, and people are missing workouts and not
But to
on
make
time
it
and
to the
stuff
UFC,
like that.
you don't have a disorganized.
Well, I
team.
think
I don't know, not necessarily. Some guys are just really good, but when you get to a certain point, you need everything around you going in the right direction.
at the end of the day, it's a really good pick. The guy is driving to the fight versus flying. His
Right.
training camp is probably driving with him. That's the other thing. Is
There's probably a few more guys with him this
yeah.
time. Keep
I
him
mean,
calm.
when you're coming from
I
Germany,
think Swanson's a really
not
good
everyone's
pick.
going to make that $2,000 trip, to come out there. So you might have one or two guys in your corner.
Yeah.
Or it's the UFC, so you might have 5 or 6 guys.
Yeah.
But it's not your normal
like a pit
crew.
crew.
Yeah, it's not your normal guys. And
Yeah.
he's younger. He's got a better record. I don't know. I'm going Swanson with this one.
Going Swanson. I'm taking Swanson too. I think he's actually pretty good value. The more I keep thinking about this, Seaver seems to only have one way to win this fight. He'd have to knock out Cub Swanson, or put him down with
It could
a
happen.
spinning back kick. It could happen. It could definitely happen. But I think Swanson's wise enough to kind of avoid that and just kind of impose his will as the fight goes on and win maybe a late decision, maybe a late submission if he can get it to the ground. So that's the last fight on the main card, you guys.
I think
Any other thoughts? What are you thinking about?
Trifecta.
Trifecta.
Cub, Swanson.
Who do you guys think is the safest pick to win on the main card, other than Frankie Edgar? Because
Anderson Silva.
Yeah, we decided.
you feel pretty good about
Oh,
Anderson
that's
Silva.
No doubt in my mind.
Yeah. Wow. And this is from a guy who knows all the main fighters.
That's pretty bold. I think. I was definitely gonna say Frankie Edgar because he's obviously they got the best.
He's a
odds.
pretty huge favorite. I think that's pretty safe if you want to add him with other
Yeah.
fighters. If you're thinking parlays, but don't get crazy with the parlays. One or two
Everybody
guys,
else,
2 or 3 guys. at the
I
most.
think it's a pretty balanced card
Trust
overall.
me.
I like the underdog. I like the undefeated. I like the Viking Chris Weidman
Why do you say the Viking?
because it's Weidman. I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah.
I don't know what his real nickname is, but
It's the All-American.
the All-American.
Oh, jeez.
The All-American.
It
Weidman.
is July 4th.
And it's July 4th.
The
Anderson
American
Silva.
Viking.
Make some money.
Anderson Silva. All right. Well, that's it for the UFC 162 Deepwater MMA podcast. I
Thanks.
just want to thank the guys
Thanks
for
for listening.
filling in for Cale, the connoisseur Loveridge, who's sick as fuck this week. We hope he feels better because we need to get him back on the podcast.
Herpes is a bitch.
Man, that's out, man. That's libel. Wait, is that libel?
That's
or
trouble
slander?
right
I don't know.
there.
I'm just trying to see if anyone's listening this far into it.
Yeah, if anyone's still listening and you heard that, then send us
We'll
an email.
find out.
We'll send you a free book. I'll
Cale-
buy you a used book
Kale's gonna
if
call
you're
me
still
on that
listening
one.
right now.
I'll tell you what. If they send in an email to you, you should invite them on the show.
I would. Anyone can come on the show.
Obviously, by this podcast,
Accordingly.
'cause this one was
This is
terrible.
a great example of that.
This is the greatest podcast ever. We
So
let you
our
do
first
it.
drinking game podcast, as we kind of reflect back on the podcast we just had,
sure
our first
that-
drinking game podcast,
Pretty successful.
pretty successful. I think we did a pretty good job. So check out the website,
We have
DeepWaterMMA.com. We have our best bet over there. We have our staff picks, and now we have the podcast, you guys.
Happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th of July.
Independence Day, man.
Independence
Can I
Day.
get a quote? To
Independence
close
Day.
it out there, Bill Pullum.
Any good
No,
quotes?
I spent it all.
Anything to
I got
plug
nothing
for you
left.
guys? Anything you want to give to the people here? Website addresses, tips, advice,
Yeah, so I want everybody to
epiphanies,
go,
insights. Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
What do you got here?
Yeah, might as well, right?
Yeah, say something.
I want everybody to talk to their parents and say hello. There you go.
That's
It's
a wholesome.
Sweet,
That
that's
was
a sweet thing, man. Call your parents.
That
Why
was
not?
genuine. If
It
you're still
was
listening,
genuine.
that was genuine.
I think
Call
be-
your parents.
Be kind to one another.
Say, yeah,
you
be
know?
nice to each other. All right.
And Cale, we love you. Hope you get better soon. Sorry
Get better, buddy. We'll see you on the next podcast. We'll be back next week with a recap podcast with Dan Kennard and Cale, the connoisseur Loveridge, back in the saddle for next week. So thank you and good luck this weekend. Peace.